Walking for lower back pain and sciatica can play an absolutely vital role in your recovery, but too often people fail to understand how to precisely utilize this particular tool, whether they should be pushing through the pain, whether they shouldn't, whether they should be doing it, whether they should be doing it all day. A number of other questions and inaccuracies in the execution of using walking to recover from lower back pain exist. And hopefully in today's video, we're going to help you understand once and for all what role walking should play in your back pain recovery, whether you should be doing it if you've got pain or not, and how long you should be doing it for, and what are the things you should be doing in order to properly recover from back pain or sciatica, no matter what the diagnosis is. If you're new here, welcome. I'm Michael Fatica, the lead osteopath and spine specialist here at Back in Shape. We help people around the UK and all over the world fix their back pain from home and get back in shape for the long term. And today we're going to be talking all about walking. So for this first bit, I'm going to use the spine to hopefully demonstrate a little bit more as to what exactly is going on. Because walking provides a specific benefit for all of you with your back. And even if it hurts, there are things we can do to make it more favorable for us. But the simple benefit that walking provides is it eases and manages the congestion. It gives us a mechanism to prevent excess inflammation building up, or manage the excess inflammation building up in these small holes where the nerves come out. Now, it doesn't matter what level this is at, but walking is particularly going to be helpful through the entirety of the spine. Most of you struggling with back pain are going to have the origins of that back pain at either L4-5 or L5-S1, the last two mobile segments of the lumbar spine. Walking essentially allows you to get these small undulating movements and pressure changes. Think about it like your back being a little kitchen sponge. And if you squeeze it all the time, rather than squeeze it in different directions and run it through your hands, you're going to get a better exchange of fluid in and out of that sponge. And therefore you clean the sponge more effectively. If you just squeeze the sponge and stay still all day, then it's not going to get that exchange of nutrients in and out of the disc, the fluid in and out of the disc, or in and out of the region of the lower back, because it's not just loose space in this area. There is stuff there. And when we've got a bad injury in our lower back, we have more stuff. And what happens is we get these little holes, they become full, it starts to compress the nerve, and then we get that exacerbating pain in the lower back or pain down the leg in the cases of sciatica. So this is one of the reasons why you feel particularly bad often first thing in the morning or after you've been still for a long period of time. That congestion builds when you're still in bed at night, and the first thing you do to get up is put load back onto the spine. You realize just how much congestion is there and you can hardly move. But so many people will find, generally speaking, that as they start to move a little bit, as they start to get up out of bed, as painful as it can be, as much as that sciatica is flaring up, once they're moving around a little bit, things start to settle down. Now, back is a load-bearing structure. And so things might then build back up again because we're moving beyond the tolerance for load-bearing in our lumbar spine where the injury is. But it does help ease some of that congestion. We'll talk about other things you can do to help that even further. But just for a moment, let's address the other exercises that are commonly given to try and do this same sort of thing. And the big ones are going to be the knee hugs and the child's pose and the knee rocks. And the big problem with these is these are large amplitude movements, meaning they are moving the spine through a large, long range of motion, either in flexion or in the twisting motion in the case of the knee rocks. And this large amount of motion, particularly flexion, is stressing and straining the very tissues that are trying to knit back together again and tighten back up on the back of the spine. It's stretching out those disc fibers that are torn and damaged, resulting in the bulging disc. And those are the exercises that so many gravitate to. Of the thousands of members and patients that we've seen over the years, more or less everybody comes to us initially doing those exercises. We stop them to do those exercises, we start doing other things, and they get better. And so walking offers you kind of the best of both worlds. We have to manage excess congestion in that area. That's not really getting us quote unquote better. And in the case of walking, it might be a little bit aggravating to a degree. It might be very aggravating if you're walking in a particular way. But the movement that is associated with walking, those small movements, those small pressure changes, help with the rehydration of those discs, with the drainage of waste products in that region, and are useful to do whilst not being high amplitude, high range of motions movements like knee hugs that actually make the problem worse. So it's helpful if we understand what role walking is going to then play in our recovery process. And there's really two main parts with an optional third. Well, not optional, but necessary third. And that third is the education. You have to be educated around good back health, good back hygiene, all those other sorts of things. We won't address that in this particular video. But we've got our rehab work, which is the stuff that is actually transforming your body, changing your body, getting it stronger. Walking is not in that category. That is really the stuff that gets you better. Then there is the relief-based work. This would be exercises that we talk about a lot, like the towel, the bed decompression, lower body stretching, and contrast bathing, which we'll touch on a bit later as well. And these are there to relieve the stress and strain of daily life. Now, understandably, walking is a bit of a mix there, right? Because walking is putting load on the back, so that's a little bit of stress, but at the same time, it's managing the congestion component. And when you combine walking with the other bits and pieces in short durations that are not significantly aggravating, we can really get a nice bit of relief work done that we do periodically through the day, whilst also focusing on our rehabilitation work. But walking very much comes in the category of being relief-based work, relieving stress and strain, rather than progressive rehabilitation work. And that's very important for what we're going to get onto later. So how are we going to actually use walking? It might be that you really struggle to weight bear at all, especially when you wake up first thing in the morning. And so literally shimmying with your hands on the counter of the kitchen, left and right, just to get a little bit of movement, taking a bit of load off your spine can be helpful. I know we don't mention it a lot in terms of swimming, but going into the pool and just walking around the pool can provide you with a little bit of relief because we're in a slightly lower gravity environment. Just like taking our hands taking our weight off on our hands in the kitchen, we can also do that. That being said, it might be more difficult to get to the pool for obvious reasons. Then we can also use walking. If we can walk for slightly longer durations, it might be that we can walk for 10 minutes before the pain comes on. So we stick to walking for bouts of 5 to 7 minutes. And we're walking with good posture, holding our core engaged. Maybe it's just around the house to start with, but that helps ease some of the inflammation. And a story from back when we had the clinic in London, so many times patients would call up, new patients coming in and saying, they booked the appointment, oh, but I'm feeling so sore this morning, I can't get out of bed, etc., etc. It's like, look, come in because, that's going to help you. The only way you're going to start getting better is if you do something. And of those times, they come in many, many times saying, oh, well, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I'm so much better than when I spoke to you on the phone this morning. And it's because that little bit of movement, we're tempted when we're in a lot of pain, we got to get out of bed first thing in the morning when it's generally going to be worse for a lot of people, not everybody, but a lot of people. And we think, oh, I can't do it. But actually, if you just get moving, it's the congestion in that area. You haven't done anything objectively to damage your back in those 8 hours that you've been sleeping. You've been still led in bed. It's not made the status quo worse. You've only had a period of healing taking place in that 6 to 8 hours. It's been uninterrupted. The issue is the congestion in that area. And just the simple act of actually moving, even though there have been bad things along the way to get into the clinic, such as getting in and out of the car, which could be deemed as more aggravatory, just the movement itself, calming down some of that congestion, is helpful. And the realization for that is empowering. Whether it's walking for 30 to 60 seconds with good posture up and down the kitchen, or whether walking around the block for 5-10 minutes at a time, as long as you're sticking within pain-free or low-level pain levels, that's the most important thing. But once you start to get towards 20 minutes, then benefit, the reward for that walking becomes limited. Now, there are 2 other things that I've already mentioned that can help with the congestion, which are even easier to do. The first one is contrast bathing. We've got a dedicated video, a step-by-step instruction on how to do that. There's a link down in the description to do that. And that is alternating hot and cold. So that's a hot water bottle and an ice pack directly over the lumbar spine, the area where we have this congestion, which is down here in the low back. Okay, your belt line might sit about here. So right there, tuck it down the back of your trousers. And you do 5 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes of each, alternating over a 20-minute period. You can do this repeatedly. Another option is going to be the bed decompression and the towel decompression. The bed decompression where we're lying on our tummy and we're creating these gentle pumps through the lower back. The towel decompression being lying over a small rolled up towel to decompress gently the lumbar spine and restore the spinal lordosis. And for those last 2, as well as a couple of other helpful relief-based stretches that you can do at home multiple times a day, click the link down in the description to watch the full live routine. And you can take all of these 3 things, walking, the contrast bathing, and that little routine that I mentioned, as your healthy back routines that you can take forward for the long term, even if you don't particularly have back pain. That includes sciatica, by the way. By far and away, the biggest mistake that people make when they talk about walking is walking thinking that it is getting the back better. Walking is not getting your back better. Walking is not rehabilitating your back. Walking is not doing the strengthening work. Walking is just walking. Walking is not a difficult task. It's not rehabilitative. It is just that relief category for those of you with back pain. Now, granted, if you've been completely out of action for months and months on end, you can't even get up out of a chair, you've got such weak legs, you can't bend down and do anything at all, then in the hospital setting, you might well be instructed to start walking with a Zimmer frame or something like that. But we're not dealing with that category of individuals. Most of you guys are still doing stuff every single day. And therefore, walking for walking's sake, because it feels good or because it alleviates some of the congestion, for long periods at the expense of the other stuff is a big mistake. So by all means, you could do more walking, more bouts of 20 minutes, longer durations, as long as they are pain-free, but it should not take away from the work that needs to be done on the strengthening front. And that is proper rehabilitative strengthening exercises that need to be done daily in the first instance as you're learning, and then a couple times a week later on. So in review, combining walking with other relief-based strategies to ease the congestion in the lumbar spine, to help take pressure off the lumbar spine and combat the stresses and strain of daily life, as well as keep the hips nice and mobile, are going to be helpful practices. If we're going to feed walking into that as well, we'd always do walking before we maybe did some lower body stretching, and then we do some decompression and towel decompression, and then we do some icing or contrast bathing at the end. That's a nice little relief routine that we talk about a lot with our members and our patients. And we do that multiple times a day if we've got time. If you're in more pain and you're not going to work because of the pain, then you can do it more frequently. If you've got other commitments and things, then you do it as much as you can. But that is your relief-based work. And you have to remember that it is not progressive, it is not cumulative. We've then got our strengthening work. And we recently did a video that you can check out in the description below on the core 5 for spine health. These are 5 simple exercises that are easy to do and accessible for absolutely everybody. You might not find the versions that are demonstrated in that video easy to do, in which case there are regressions, easier versions of those that everybody will be able to do at some level. Your job is to then find what level you can do and build from there. So we've got a routine of relief-based work over here that we're doing on a daily basis, and then our strengthening work that is actually making our body better again. Hopefully that helps you guys understand a little bit more about how walking can play a role, and understand the most important thing, that walking is not getting you better for the long term without the presence of rehabilitation exercises, strengthening-based exercises. Those are what transform your back health for the long term, and they are vital to your long-term success. If you need any more help with strategies, videos, support in recovering from your back pain or sciatica, then check out the Back in Shape program on the website. It's a membership program where you have the full phases of the program, phase 1 through to 4, as well as other accessory libraries that really help give you guys all the tools necessary to fix your back pain for good. And it's also supported by the team here to make sure that you've got everything that you need to recover from back pain for good. If you haven't made it this far, thanks for watching. If you know someone else that's been maybe falling into that trap of walking, they're just walking, maybe share this video with them. And as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.